This episode is sponsored by Cribble.
Security is everybody's job except the CISOs. Their job is to ineffectively blame an intern and then get fired for security breaches regardless. And security is hard. Threats are increasing exponentially along with data volumes and the noise attendant with that. SecOps is like security, except it adds in the ops part, which distills down to doing work somewhere other than on a whiteboard. Cribble Stream solves the SecOps noise problem by routing security data where it needs to go so you can see it when you need to see it. Simplify your data management, enhance your ability to hunt down the threats that actually matter, and free up time to respond to the egregious slander of the role of security teams that I gave a second ago. Smash the link below and see what Cribble has to offer your security teams today. And while you're down there, also tag the like and subscribe buttons, which I am told is a YouTube thing. Thanks for tuning in to LWIA 5. I'm Corey Quinn from your local news team. In what would later be known as the AWS incident, everyone who attended reInvent 2026 found the horror of Adam Selipsky's keynote seared upon their souls for the rest of their lives. AWS had split off from the Amazon parent earlier that year, and as the new CEO of the now standalone cloud computing company, Selipsky had high expectations to meet. Some folks expected him to announce a radically new direction for the company. Others expected a return to the Cambrian explosion of new service launch announcements. The broader consensus was generally that AWS would continue on with business as more or less usual. Even Selipsky's own colleagues didn't expect him to walk onto the stage, calmly unveil the Mona Lisa, douse it in gasoline, set it on fire, turn, calmly leave the stage, and throughout the entire 90 seconds of his keynote, speak not a single word. And absolutely nobody predicted that the following quarter, AWS would post its traditional 25% to 40% year-over-year growth rates. I'm Corey Quinn from the LWIA 5 news team. Back to you in the studio, Corey. This is a fanciful imagining of a future that's yet to come to pass. But it's also largely correct with respect to what the market response would almost certainly be. Retail customers can get upset and cancel subscriptions or stop shopping at a given store virtually instantly. Advertisers can pause ad runs and cancel contracts remarkably quickly. Keep watching this show to see examples of that. But deciding to evacuate a cloud provider out of a distaste for their business practices, their leadership, or their CEO setting fire to a priceless cultural artifact live on stage is something that would take years to effect, regardless of how incensed people were. American founding father and reputed insufferable jackass Ben Franklin once wrote that 3 moves is as bad as a fire when it comes to your house, and he wasn't wrong. There's a reason that every significant cloud provider, and also IBM, effectively hurls money at customers to get them to attempt proofs of concepts, to migrate workloads, and more or less pave their way toward cloud being as absolutely pain-free as possible. It's incredibly difficult, it's time-consuming as hell, and it is expensive as any nightmare to migrate a workload from one environment to another. There's a reason why things like AWS's Migration Acceleration Program effectively hurl money at customers in the form of service credits and partner consulting hours to get them to migrate. It's because once a workload lives on a given cloud provider, it's extremely unlikely to be going anywhere else anytime soon. And it sits there, generating revenue for the cloud provider every second that it's running. There's sticky revenue, and then there's cloud revenue, which is something else entirely we haven't really seen before. Virtually every client that we work with at the Duckbill Group finds that a year after an engagement with us, they're spending more money on AWS than they were when we started. It's more efficient spend, and they can attribute it a lot better on a per workload basis, and they can predict it way more effectively, but the raw dollar spend is year over year higher. That represents growth, and to be clear, it is not a bad thing. They are not upset about this. But it does mean that if some regulatory or technical snafu were to suddenly decree that AWS could take on 0 new customers for a month or a quarter or a year, AWS's revenue would continue to grow over that period. Holding an AWS bill at a relatively static spend level is hard. One of the few companies that has done this for more than a year is the Duckbill Group itself, because it took a lot of work to pull it off and we're very good at it. But for virtually every company that doesn't have the capability or the insight or both to drive work like that, the cloud bill is inherently an unbounded growth problem that sooner or later you're going to have to deal with. Getting back to Amazon, unlike the retail operation that sells underpants, the passions of the moment have remarkably little bearing on their cloud division's business. If you're incensed, as am I, by AWS's ridiculous 18-month post-employment non-compete agreements that they make all of their staff sign, or its terrifyingly bad free tier, you're going to complain about it on Twitter if you're you, or on Last Week in AWS if you're me, but you're not going to migrate your myriad complex workloads to another cloud provider without some seriously good incentives, because you've got work to do, and work isn't generally congruent with endlessly shuffling your workload between providers. That's why it is so frustrating to me to see Amazon's stock price, earnings calls, and analyst forecasts basically ignore the incredible business dynamics of the company's cloud business in favor of talking endlessly about the vagaries of their retail business. One of those businesses is incredibly variable, being subject to the whims of customers, millions of disparate supply chain issues, and remarkably low margins. The other is not. I do not play the markets myself, but if I did, I would be absolutely gung-ho to invest in a pure hyperscale cloud computing company. Unfortunately, if I look at the big three, we don't have one of those that I could invest in. Instead, I would have to choose between investing in a bookstore, a software company, and a surveillance company. As the industry continues to mature, it becomes hard not to see a dynamic unfolding where a high-margin cloud division is propping up a low-margin ancillary business in many cases. And on a personal note, both for me and on behalf of the people who work at AWS, it is just maddening to me that given the market's perspective on Amazon's company, that AWS's compensation structure is so inextricably linked to how many underpants the retail store did or didn't sell. But hey, at least for now, we still have the Mona Lisa.